Hi everybody, this is Dan Stolbarger. Welcome to this week's KFIR Middle East Update. It is Monday, August 21st, and we're going to look back over the last week of the events that transpired in Israel. We always start with our news bites, but first, a reminder that accompany this YouTube is a PDF PowerPoint, and you can get that on our website at holygroundexploration.com, or it should be a link on this YouTube page. So what has transpired? Well, we're going to talk a little bit about Iran, and we're going to talk about the upcoming, it's inevitable, this nuclear deal with Iran. But Iran has dropped its demand that the U.S. remove the Iranian Republic Guard from the State Department's list of terrorist organizations. In exchange, obviously, they want to return to what they call compliance with the nuclear agreement that it signed with the world powers in 2015. We're going to talk a little bit more about the joke of all of this. But in a sense, we're going to see this transpire over the next week. No doubt about it. Benny Gantz is climbing in the polls. Again, for most people in Israel, they're not going to be 100% comfortable with Lapid, a little bit probably to the left. But Gantz is kind of straddling that center left. He may be the best option for those that oppose Netanyahu, but I find it interesting that he's kind of getting a lot of news clips, news bites, I guess you would say. He's warning, again, he is the defense minister, so he is warning about the potential of a Hezbollah strike against the Israeli gas field, and if that were to take place, anything that takes place in that gas field, he's saying that could launch the next major war that Israel will have with the Hezbollah. Interesting article this week that I read about Mahmoud Abbas. We always talk about who's after him with his health and his age, but the article basically said if you look at Abdullah in Jordan and Abbas in Ramallah, they're nearing the end of their days. On the political horizons, what will transpire when these two are removed or stepped aside or die, right? Because that's truly a possibility. So a lot of debate back and forth, but nothing concrete. But no doubt Israel is dealing with the potential of new leadership, both in the Palestinian Authority as well as Jordan. And then Benny Gantz, as I just talked about, I just read this today. And this is going to be, I think it's going to be his death knell as far as the possibility of being the next prime minister, because he's come out and basically made the statement that parts of Jerusalem may be possible for the Palestinian capital. And so there's that clash between the undivided Jerusalem as the capital of Israel alone. And again, Gantz, Lapid, one of their agendas is to make this Palestinian state happen. And again, the Palestinians are saying we have to have Jerusalem as the capital. And it looks as if Gantz is caving to these demands. And we'll have to wait and see its impact. Again, Abbas, foot and mouth disease. When he's in Germany this week, he makes the statement at a joint press conference with the German chancellor there. He was actually asked, it's been 50 years since the Munich massacre at the Olympic Village site, and was asked to apologize for what took place there. When Palestinian terrorists murdered 11 Israeli athletes, and instead of apologizing, Abbas accused Israel of committing, quote, 50 holocausts against the Palestinians. And again, the embarrassment of the German chancellor. There's an obvious reason why Abbas didn't apologize for the massacre of the Munich Olympics, because the PA and the Fatah are very proud of that attack. And so, again, proud of the attack, proud of the murders, that sort of thing. But there's been a lot of blowback over those comments. And now Abbas is retracting them, but we know what the bottom line is. The next article, somebody that I respect a great deal is Carolyn Glick and her writings. A reporter, news reporter for the Jerusalem Post over the years, but just a pundit for the right. So anyhow, she's talking about this Iranian deal and basically makes a statement that the Biden administration's on the verge of closing its long sought after nuclear agreement with Iran. And bottom line, this final draft that's going to take place, even though it's billed as a take it or leave it sort of thing, Biden is caving. And unfortunately, this deal is not going to mean much. It's a paper tiger or whatever. But for those that understand the ins and outs of this deal, what Biden is doing is really turning his back on all other Arab nations and Arab allies in order to, in a sense, make this deal with Iran. The problem is that when Obama presented the first opportunity for this, it was met with a lot of criticism. Obviously, every Republican, even a minority though, but there was blowback from the Democratic Party. But now all of this news is really just being greeted with yawns and apathy. But again, a nuclear Iran. One of the things that Biden has offered to do is to remove any restrictions on ballistic missiles. Figure. Anyhow, that's what's taken place. And like I said, over the next, I should probably hedge my bet here, but I would say over the next couple weeks, I think we're going to see this deal ratified between those parties. Israel and Turkey are agreeing to restore full diplomatic relations, dispatching ambassadors for the first time in months. Turkey is being beset by economic troubles, and if Erdogan is ever to retain his position, he's going to have to pull a rabbit out of the hat as far as the economy goes. And the first way to do that is to pony up to Israel. And that's what's taken place. Again, in the midst of all this smoozing that's going on, the tagline at the end of it all is that Erdogan goes on to say, however, with this new arrangement with Israel, let it be known that we will continue to defend the rights of Palestine, the rights of Jerusalem, the Temple Mount, and Gaza. That's the deal. Temple Mount, how sacred is that Temple Mount actually to the Palestinians? You can see in the slides here. Israel Hayom, one of the major news sources in Israel, has obtained footage of several vehicles just dumping trash without any supervision or oversight on the Temple Mount. Bottom line is, if you know anything about it, the Temple Mount really has no meaning whatsoever to Islam. And you look at the pictures here, and from the Israeli perspective, as they look at it, they're simply saying, after we've realized that the Temple Mount doesn't have any real value in their eyes, it's time for Israel to start enforcing sovereignty at their most holiest place in the world and decide whether or not they want to actually be in charge. And then New York Times, just an article that I've titled, Have You Seen This? a New York Times contributing reporter, his comments, Fadi Hanana, his quote is, "I don't accept a Jew, Israeli, or Zionist, or anyone else who speaks Hebrew. I'm with killing them, wherever they are. Children, elderly people, soldiers." That's his quote. And until this last Friday, the New York Times employed this guy. And they considered his reporting as, quote, all the news that's fit to print. And they've recently let him go, but keep this in mind. And again, I'll go on. It says, a source that 53% of all the Americans find credible, that source being the New York Times, they gave their platform to this journalist who asserted that I'm in favor of killing the Jews, burning them like Hitler did, and I would be extremely happy if that took place. This is the same guy that they trusted to contribute 6 of the 8 articles that they published during Operation Breaking Dawn. Okay, I think one more. Interesting. Israelis leaving the U.S., making their aliyah from the U.S. to Israel. Israel is a prime destination as American Israelis see Biden's American collapsing. The real reason for this uptick in the new immigration to Israel is really the belief that Israel and America are going in opposite directions. Everyone looks at the USA. Inflation is destroying jobs and savings, and many young families are barely scraping by. Appears that Biden's dementia is getting worse. Anti-Semitism is on the rise. And so with all of that, Jewish Americans that have a connection to both Israel and America, excuse me, are realizing that in the coming decades, prospects for real advancement, security for Jews will be better in the Holy Land than in the United States. Ultimately, something is going to have to change in America's trajectory, or the aliyah to Israel will continue to go up. Interesting. So that's our report for this week. And I always kind of sign off and remembering the fact that God is in control of all of these things. Doesn't matter the mullahs, Biden, Turkey, Russia, Putin, China, all of those together don't matter at all. God is in ultimate control. He has written the script, and he is the one behind the scenes. And so our trust is in him, but that doesn't take away our responsibilities to stand, to be salt, to be light in the generations that God has placed us in. So with that, God bless you and shalom, and we'll see you next week.